Okay, hello and welcome to the 9-day novella, day 5, Make It Pretty. We are here today to talk about making a cover and creating a title and a blurb for that novella that you've been working on. My name is Sandy Vasher and I am your 9-day novella facilitator or workshop leader or virtual workshop leader. And if you are joining us and this is the first of the videos that you've seen, you might want to go back. This is a series of videos all about helping writers go from blank page to published product in terms of creating a novella that they can use as a reader magnet to collect subscribers and earn fans who might be interested in their work. So if you have been with me, then you know that we spent the first of our 9 days outlining, preparing, planning our stories. We spent days 2 through 4 drafting. And on day 5, your job is to rest your eyes. So no looking at that novella or short story that you just wrote, but instead we want to think about what we're going to do to market this. So we're going to turn on the more creative side of your brain, or at least the artsy side of your brain, and get thinking about that stuff. So, all right, our agenda today is relatively simple. So basically, we've just gone through our intro. I want to talk about researching your genre, your title and blurb, and your cover. And that is basically your main tools when we think about making your novella pretty. Now, a critical note. Remember how we said that the best way to succeed as a writer is to recognize that writers are small business owners. So as a small business owner, you really have to learn to leave your heart at the door and get real about your marketing. Your title, the back of your book blurb, and your cover are the 3 most important marketing tools you have. If you screw them up, then it doesn't matter how amazing your book is, because no one will open it to read it. Get them right, and you might have tons of fans. Now, does this mean that it has to be perfect? Again, never. But you do need to understand that there are genre standards to live up to, and that just sort of like doing a homemade thing isn't going to cut it if you want to sell. So we want to start by talking about researching the genre, because you want your stuff to sell, right? So if you want your book to sell, then you really need to understand what genre your book is in and what that genre expects out of the books that are marketed to it, particularly in terms of title, cover, and blurb. So every genre has a different standard in terms of what it wants in terms of covers and titles. So like YA, for example, you might get a cover that looks like, let's see if I can't give you a quick look at this, that looks like this. It's a beautiful cover of a book that was really popular last year. But if you are in, let's say, a middle grade field, then a book that's popular might look like, say, this. So see how like these book covers are both illustrated, but this one, which is young adult, has a much darker vibe than this one, which is for middle grade, which has kind of this like cartoony look. Likewise, romance has its own standards, mystery and thriller has its own standards, creative nonfiction, nonfiction like self-help books, pop science, these all have their own standards, and you need to know what those standards are, because if you don't, then again, you're going to get it wrong, and that means nobody will actually read your book. So when we think about this, you need to know what genre your book is in, and then you really need to do your research on like what's happening in that genre. So you're going to do this by reading books in your genre, obviously, paying attention to the books that are selling in your genre, and most importantly, for marketing purposes, you want to pay attention to what the covers, titles, and blurbs are. So, for example, when I named my young adult novel that's coming up, I really wanted to include something sort of middle grade-ish. And in fact, my original title was Sassafras and the Queen, which I thought was really incredibly cute. Maybe for a middle grade book, but not at all for a young adult book. In young adult books, things have to sound just sort of deeper or darker. So I had to ditch that entirely and find something that did work for my genre. Now, how do you do this genre research that we're talking about? Well, a good place to start is the biggest bookstore in the world, Amazon. One of the best things that you can do is go on Amazon and look at what's actually selling. So let's see here if we can't do this together. So here you go. I see I'm not even sharing my screen with you. Here we go. So one of the best things that you can do is to see what's hot on Amazon, and I do wanna share this with you. So here is my Amazon page. Now, let's suppose that I want to get into writing, say, paranormal romance. So I might go here in the browse category, and then go find books. And then I'm going to scroll down here. This is where all of the big categories are. I write romance. I also write YA, but right now we're looking at romance. So if I wanted to do romance, I'm going to click romance here. And now I see that there's even more categories. So there are subcategories. And in fact, romance has all kinds of little subcategories. So I don't just have the ability to look at sort of like romantic suspense books. I could look at romance books with time travel and cowboys, or where a popular theme is beaches or workplace. So I've got many choices here to look at. So let's suppose that I'm writing contemporary, because that's actually what I was working on for my novella. A contemporary romance novel might look like one of these. So when we think about what's top rated, you see that in romance, the covers are going to be pretty romantic, and they aren't necessarily going to feature things like, say, naked man chess. But if I go back and look at, say, paranormal romance, then suddenly we're looking at a totally different world. So now we could be looking at something like J.R. Ward's Blood Truth here, where you're going to see some naked man chess, or maybe something really cool here like Shadow of the Night with some symbolism. And this category actually has even more subcategories. So if I wanted to, I could go in and find even more. So like I might be able to find, say, paranormal romance angels, and actually like look for these particular books. So many options when it comes to thinking about what bestsellers are doing. Now let's look at another genre here. So I'll show you another one that I'm in. So I also write in teen and young adult. So let's suppose that I want to figure out what's going on in teen and young adult sci-fi fantasy, where I really want to write in. So you can see here that there are, again, many categories. So let's do teen, sci-fi, fantasy. And as I scroll down, I'll find things like Cassandra Clare or James Patterson, and I'll get all these different looks. Now, right this second, I am browsing, I think, just books. It can be very helpful here to look specifically in the Kindle store. So if you really want to know what's going on, and obviously Kindle thinks that I am thinking a lot about angel books right now, so maybe let's see what's in Kindle ebooks. And if we do this and look in teen and young adult, and then maybe we want to look for science fiction, and I'm going to get all of these different choices again. And Amazon is remembering what I'm looking for, so it is showing me the angel books, but I could also just clear that, right? So right now it's got angels as the category. So I could clear that and I could just look for regular, right? And now we see Harley, Merlin, and the Secret Coven as like one of the top books right now, or Good Omens in teen books. Obviously, Harry Potter is always up at the top. But the point is that this gives me a ton to look at in terms of what's doing well for YA covers. So I can now see like, okay, this is what's looking good right now. This is what people want. All right, so that's a really, really helpful thing for you to do. Other useful research tools. There's a lot of great market research out there. So KDP Rocket will give you a really nice look at what Amazon categories are out there for you and where your book might fit in terms of that browse section we were just looking at. Klytics will give you oodles of research on what's hot and what's trending and what's not. They are a little more expensive than KDP Rocket, but you can get like a membership for a month at a time and take advantage of what they have, and then ask them to take your membership back down to a basic for a while. Data like this can be enormous for you, especially if you're somebody who's trying to write to market. So you really do want to know what's selling, and especially places like Klytics do reports on things like the top 100 books in a genre and what their covers look like. So you can get really great information online about what's selling on Amazon. And don't forget that there's also those in-person stores. So take some field trips. Check out your local Barnes & Noble and go see what's selling in your genre right now at the big box stores. So see what your bookstore actually has in your genre. Then go visit your local independent bookstores and compare. A lot of times at a local independent bookstore, you could even talk to owners and managers about what they're stocking and what's hot right now. And it's also a really good time to do research about whether or not your independent bookstore will stock local or indie authors. Okay, now, supposing that you understand your genre, then you want to move on to thinking about your title and your blurb. So as we've said, there are 3 huge marketing tools that you have: your title, your blurb, and your cover. We're going to talk about your cover art specifically because, let's face it, people do judge a book by the cover. And honestly, if your cover stinks, then nobody's even going to click on your book. But the title also really matters, and so does the blurb, because once somebody clicks, then they have to actually buy the book. So let's take a quick look here and make sure we're all on the same page at what should go on a book cover and what terms we're talking about. So the front of your book cover, and by the way, this book cover came from 99 Designs, which is a place where you can get book covers and all kinds of resources. But this is a really nice example of what should be on a book cover. So you'll see that here we have the title, the author name, and also here this Sam Carter mystery, a series name. The series name is not always necessary, but it can be helpful. Your cover is also going to need to have a spine, and the spine should have your title, your name, and potentially like a publisher imprint logo, or maybe like a logo for the series. And then the back of your book is going to have your blurb. So see this little part here? This is the summary of the book. That is what we are referring to when we refer to a blurb. And then the back of your cover can also have a tagline, maybe a series name, potentially like some editorial review snippets or a publisher imprint, an author pick, a website, maybe a little bio. Everything here is basically optional except for the barcode, and people do expect a blurb of some kind on the back of your book. Now, let's think about that title for a second. Titles matter. If your title doesn't fit your genres, readers are not going to pick it up. And what you want to think about is that titles should give the reader a feel for the book, and that some genres are particularly picky about titles. But, look, I think what happens a lot of times is when we spend so much time on a product, our soul really gets caught up in it. And then we name it something that matters to us. So we call the book a particular thing, and it has a particular emotional meaning to us. And that's really, really significant. That is beautiful. if you don't care about selling your book. If you are doing this just for you, just for your family, just to get it done, then fine, title it whatever you want. But if you actually want to make money from your book, then you have to leave your emotions at the door when it comes to this tool. Your titles matter to your reader. They should not matter that much to you. So for your purposes, the title only counts, and same with cover and same with blurb, to the extent that it sells your book. So you really want to think about what's going to fit that genre. Something I think that people worry about, your title can be the same as the title of another book, but you do want to watch out for potential copyright issues, which you can normally resolve with just like a series name. Blurbs also matter. So, certainly like a reader's going to judge that book by the cover. Whether or not they bother to click on your book in a row of other books will probably mostly depend on the cover. But after that, it is your blurb and the reviews that are going to sell that book. So you got to nail that. And with regards to your blurb, these are really hard, right? So we're writers because we like words and we spend a lot of time on them. And I think it's worth it just to talk to you about this for a second. So listen, blurbs are one of the hardest things that you are going to do as a writer because, you wrote, like a 25,000 word novella, and now you're asked to shrink that down into like 2 paragraphs to advertise? That's tough, right? If you could have told the story in 2 paragraphs, then you wouldn't have needed 25,000 words for it. So because it is tough, I highly recommend that you join the Indie Cover Project on Facebook. The Indie Cover Project is an amazing resource for critiquing blurbs, covers, and titles. They have a whole set of files on there, including an amazing blurb tool that will basically give you like a little template for what should be included in a blurb. Your blurb has to hook the reader. It should not give the story away, and it needs to be something like 150 to 200 words. If you don't believe that, then take a look at the backs of the books of covers or of books that are traditionally published or books that are really popular, and count those words. See how much the popular books are doing, and then understand that if you want to compete, your job is to get your self-published book to look as much as possible like a traditionally published book. So that's what you want, 150 to 200 words. 1 sentence is not enough. You need probably 4 sentences at least, but you do not want it to go on for page after page because we are not talking about a synopsis of your book here. And short is good, right? So short and punchy for a blurb is going to be a good thing. So think about it like this. When you write your blurb, you are not writing a tagline, but you are writing 1 or 2 paragraphs that are going to hook the reader in and make them want to care about your characters right away. So get that right and get the cover right, and you are far more likely to be able to sell your book. Now, speaking of cover art, and that's our sort of last little topic here, again, because you want your book to sell, the cover art matters. Here is a, wait, I just realized I'm not on screen share. Let me get you back to screen share. So your cover art does matter. Now here is a picture of you of a book that I wrote. This is a cover I designed. Do not use this as a model. This was not a very good cover. This was just the first cover that I attempted to actually sell a book with. And okay, look, so I will tell you, this cover did fine in like book funnel freebie promotions. But on Amazon, there's no way that this cover would have been acceptable because it does not match any genre standards. Now, of course, your cover is art, and art is subjective. But again, that means it's really important to pay attention to what the genre wants. And remember, we looked at some of those romance covers earlier? None of this is what my genre wants. So, having said that, you can make your own cover. If you're going to make your own cover, you're probably going to want some design software. So you're either going to need Adobe Photoshop, Affinity Designer, or GIMP. Photoshop is, of course, like the gold standard, but it is extremely expensive. Affinity Designer is less expensive. It's like a one-time fee. I think it's $50 right now or something like that. But it is a very robust product. It's what I use, and this is a picture of Affinity here from one of their promotional pictures. There's also GIMP. So my fellow WordStitch gal, Chloe, uses GIMP. It should have the same features as Affinity or Adobe, but it is free. It could have a couple of bugs. So I have never had good luck with GIMP myself, but she's had great luck with it. And those are all really valid choices for you. In order to make your own cover, you're going to need images. So what you're probably going to want to be doing is manipulating stock images and adding pretty fonts and titles and effects and lighting and contrast to make your title what you want it to be. So as far as image resources go, you can use Shutterstock for when you need people on your cover. Note that there will be a fee. You can use Pixabay or Pexels for when you need royalty-free background images. You can use Freepik for when you need illustrated vectors. Now, a couple of notes. As far as tips go, do pay for stock images of people. So even if you find a royalty-free image of a person on Pixabay or Pexels or someplace where it says things should be free, be really wary of using that kind of stuff, because it is very possible that whoever took that picture does not have the proper permissions to give you the right to use the picture commercially. Do not just use flat backgrounds and landscapes. So I don't care how pretty you think that picture of the sky and the mountains are for your romance. You need more than that. Do pay for better fonts. So I like Creative Fabrica for my fonts. A font can be $15, and that's a great thing for you to have. Do not use more than 2 fonts on your cover. I will confess I have made this mistake. It is not helpful for you as a writer. Pay attention to cool effects. So you don't have to have your font be flat, but don't go crazy. So we don't want to have so much to look at on your cover that we don't know where to look. And finally, expect that whatever cover you make is not going to beat a professional's. So look, if you are in a genre where cover really, really, really matters, then you may need to pay somebody to create the cover for you. Now, what if this really isn't your thing? And it isn't going to be a lot of writers' things. You could hire a cheap cover designer on a site like Fiverr, although you want to watch out because you can get very mixed results and you basically will get what you pay for. A better alternative is to buy a pre-made cover and have it customized for you. This is going to run you anywhere from $50 to $300, but it'll be a lot easier than doing it yourself. So let me show you a little picture of that. So here's our Amazon again, and we're just going to Google, let's Google pre-made book covers. So if you Google pre-made book covers, you're going to see all these sites pop up. And what you can do is just click on one of these. And then what you can see here is that there's just a ton of different covers that have been put up by cover designers. And you see that they'll say things like author name, book title. So these are up for sale. The designers can only use them once, so they're not selling the same cover for more than one book. And you add the cover to your cart and then tell the designer what your title is and what your name is, and they customize those covers then for your title and name. So usually with this, you're not going to get major customization with regards to things like, a big change in graphic design. So if you liked this picture but you thought that woman should have, I don't know, black hair or red hair or something, generally speaking, the designer, who in this case is Warren Design, is not interested in changing that for you. But you can always ask. I mean, it could be that for an extra fee that person will do that for you. And oftentimes in these sort of things, you can actually look for genre specific stuff. So let's say that you are writing, steampunk. That's a fun category. You want to write steampunk. So here are a bunch of potentially steampunkish covers that you could use for your book. And you can see that, I mean, not all of them are amazing, but lots of them are pretty good, right? So like, this looks pretty cool. If that looks good to you and you think it fits your cover, then maybe this is the right way for you to go in terms of covers. All right, so finally, if you make your cover yourself, again, please consider letting the Indie Cover Project critique it for you. I am not associated with the Indie Cover Project, so just in case you're wondering, this is just me telling you about this amazing Facebook research, and all you gotta do is just go search for Indie Cover Project in Facebook, join the group, and then you will see that there are tons and tons and tons of people constantly posting covers and blurbs on that website and asking for feedback, and people really do give and get feedback. It can be harsh, but again, you got to leave your heart at the door with this. So this is about business that we're talking about here. You did a lot of work on that book. You want to write more books. If you want to write more books, you got to be able to sell those books. So that's just sort of what you've got to do. All right, so that was a very short presentation for something that's probably actually going to take you a really long time. It turns out that like writing a blurb, for example, could take you, weeks, where like, you could write a chapter maybe in like a day. For the purposes of the 9-day novella, you don't have that long. So if you are trying to get something published by day 9, then I highly, highly recommend that you do something either relatively simple with stock images, if you know and have those skills already. Get yourself a pre-made cover because those are nice and easy, and then call it a day because that's a novella, right? And your job with that novella is to attract free readers, not necessarily people who are looking for that like 400-page book that you wrote, your, say, epic sci-fi fantasy. All right, so thank you for joining me today. If you are enjoying these videos, there are 4 videos behind this one. I think that there are 3 videos coming up after this one. The series is meant to walk you from blank page to published product in 9 days. We're, of course, talking about novellas and short stories, not full novels, but hopefully you get a lot of use out of these. If you enjoyed things like our word sprints, then my word stitch partner, Chloe and I, Chloe, who's standing in here with her cat instead of being here with me because I told her I would handle this particular workshop. So Chloe and I regularly on Mondays write together, and we do it virtually. So you can write with us in our virtual word sprints, and that's from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on just about every Monday. So join us then, subscribe to our channel if you found this helpful, like it, and thank you so much for watching. That is the end of our show for now. I believe my contact information is in these videos, so you could always contact me if you've got questions. And otherwise, again, have a good afternoon.